Hello and welcome again. In this section, you will learn Italian indefinite article and present tense. The Italian indefinite article, or articolo indeterminativo, corresponds to English a or an. It is only used with singular nouns. So, let's see the rules. For the masculine nouns, indefinite articles are: rule number 1. Un, if a noun begins with a consonant or a vowel. Per esempio, un ragazzo. Un ragazzo alto, a tall boy. Un tavolo, a table. Un amico, a friend. Rule number 2. Uno, if a noun begins with S plus consonant, PS, PN, Z, X, Y, or GN. For example, uno studente, a student. Uno studente diligente, a diligent student. Uno psicologo, a psychologist. Uno zio, an uncle. Now, the feminine gender. The rules are: number 1. Una, if a noun begins with a consonant. For example, una ragazza, a girl. Una bella ragazza, a beautiful girl. Una casa, a house. Una borsa, a bag. Or, rule number 2, un with apostrophe when the noun begins with a vowel. For example, un'amica, a friend. Un'amica straniera, a foreign friend. Or un'insalata, a salad. Or un'ora, an hour. Remember once again that articolo indeterminativo is used only with singular nouns. Now I think it's time to learn something about Italian present tense, or indicativo presente. In Italian, there are 3 conjugations of verbs. Number 1, verbs that end in are. Number 2, verbs that end in ere. And number 3, verbs that end in ire. The present tense of a regular Italian verb is formed by dropping the infinitive ending, are, ere, or ire, and adding the appropriate endings. Let's see how it works in practice. We begin with the first conjugation. So let's take the verb parlare, which means to talk. We drop the infinitive ending are, and we add o for the first person singular, io parlo. I for the second person singular, tu parli. A for the third person singular, lui o lei parla. Iamo for the first person plural, noi parliamo. Ate for the second person plural, voi parlate. And hanno for the third person plural, loro parlano. Io parlo, tu parli, lui, lei parla, noi parliamo, voi parlate, loro parlano. Once you learn how to conjugate one are verb, you've essentially learned hundreds of them. Let's try with verb arrivare, which means to arrive. Io arrivo, tu arrivi, lui, lei arriva, noi arriviamo, voi arrivate, loro arrivano. Okay, let's now try the verb pranzare, which means to have lunch, as you already know. Io pranzo, tu pranzi, lui, lei pranza, noi pranziamo, voi pranzate, loro pranzano. Now we can move to the second conjugation. We'll take the verb prendere, which means to take. We drop the infinitive ending ere and we add o for the first person singular. Io prendo. I for the second person singular. Tu prendi. E for the third person singular. Lui, lei prende. Iamo for the first person plural. Prendiamo. Ete for the second person plural. Prendete. And ono for the third person plural. Loro prendono. Io prendo, tu prendi, lui, lei prende, noi prendiamo, voi prendete, loro prendono. Let's try with another one. Vedere, to look, to watch. Io vedo, tu vedi, lui, lei vede, noi vediamo, voi vedete, loro vedono. And the final group, verbs in ire. Let's take the verb dormire. Dormire means to sleep. So, after dropping the infinitive ending, we add o for the first person singular, as always. Io dormo. I for the second person singular, as always. Tu dormi. E for the third person singular. Lui, lei dorme. Iamo for the first person plural, as always. Noi dormiamo. Ite for the second person plural. Voi dormite. And ono for the third person plural. Loro dormono. Let's repeat it. Io dormo, tu dormi, lui, lei dorme, noi dormiamo, voi dormite, loro dormono. When you compare the second and the third conjugation, you'll see that the only difference is in the second person plural. Let's do one more of the third conjugation. For example, the verb partire, which means to leave. Io parto, tu parti, lui, lei parte, noi partiamo, voi partite, loro partono. Now, how do we form negative sentences? We just put non in front of the verb. For example, io amo poesia. I love poetry. Io non amo poesia. I don't love or like poetry. Tu dormi molto. You sleep a lot. Tu non dormi molto. You don't sleep a lot. By the way, we haven't yet discussed this matter. How do you ask questions? One of the easiest ways to ask a question in Italian is to place a question mark at the end of a statement, and when speaking, the intonation of the voice rises at the end of the sentence. For example, tu dormi molto. You sleep a lot. Tu dormi molto? Do you sleep a lot? It's just a matter of intonation or the question mark in the writing language. Or Paolo arriva stasera. Paolo arrives this evening. And the question would be, Paolo arriva stasera? Also, adding the words or phrases such as no, non è vero, è vero, or vero to the end of a statement will change into a question. Tu dormi molto? No. Tu dormi molto, non è vero. Tu dormi molto, è vero? Or tu dormi molto, vero? Another way to form a question would be by putting the interrogative word on the beginning of the sentence. The subject, in this case, is usually placed at the end of the sentence or after the verb. The interrogatives are che cosa or che, or solo cosa for what. What is said in three ways: che cosa, che, or cosa. Then chi, which is who, chi. Then quando, which is when, quando. Come, which is how, come. And perché, which is why. Per esempio, chi arriva stasera? Paolo arriva stasera. Or quando arriva Paolo? Paolo arriva stasera. And that's it for today's lesson. In the next one, we'll deal with some irregular and important verbs. Now do your homework, guys. Don't be lazy. Ciao!